Can computers become intelligent? Or have they already become intelligent? And what does intelligence in the context of computing mean? Is the famous ChatGPT intelligent or not? Will we reach the stage of AGI, Artificial General Intelligence, where algorithms reach the level of human intelligence, or maybe even overcome it? These are vital questions today, both from scientific, philosophical, and faith points of view. I discussed these questions with Edmond Chalom, a computer scientist with a Ph.D. from MIT, but first and foremost, an intellectual and erudite with vast domain cross-cutting knowledge. I strongly encourage you to watch this episode.
Edmond, can a computer be described as intelligent?
That's a very good question. I've had some time to think about it. And of course, it depends on what intelligence means. Obviously, if intelligence is defined as a functionality, can it perform a specific task? Can it do it at a very advanced either speed or level or outperform, we'll say, humans? Then surely we've gotten to a place where the computers are more intelligent than humans in many, many different functionalities. If intelligence is defined in other ways, then we have to think about it. If intelligence is defined as what it means to be a human, or can it come up with decisions that are arbitrate when humans disagree? Can the computer be an arbitrator and decide who's right and who's wrong on capabilities and technologies?
Do you think that, let's say, computers can become human-level intelligence?
So when you start using the word human in there, it starts to add a little twist, because I think people have their own personal and individual view of what it means to be a human.
Exactly.
Each human is different. Each human thinks what it means to be human might be different than others. And my definition of human is really kind of what I've learned from mentors like Rabbi Abram Tversky, psychiatrist, doctor of blessed memory. He's written many books, and he talks about human compared to angels and compared to animals. And it's basically those characteristics that distinguish us from those creatures. And one of the main things is free choice. So do computers have free choice, or are they pre-programmed? And then people might say, do people have free choice? And he answers that in a very interesting way. He says, no one's ever seen a group of people go arrest a lion for eating the sheep, right? They don't say, hey, you can't do that to the sheep. It's not fair to the sheep. They don't arrest the lion. And the reason is because that's the lion's nature. It's his nature. Whereas, heaven forbid, if people were to act in a violent way in society or in a way that's against the law, they're put in jail. And the reason why they're put in jail is in the hopes, at least in theory, that they'll find some kind of reform, whether it's through introspection or through penalties or whatever it is. And the underlying assumption is that people can change. So if people can change, it really means that they have a kind of free choice. So now the question is, we can apply, instead of to lions, can we apply that to computers? If a computer makes a mistake and we put it in jail, it's not going to
already occurred, I think,
out
in the US. I think there was.
Sorry?
I think it already occurred in the US.
That what?
That, let's say, somebody was arrested because police was supported by an AI algorithm.
Oh, that's very interesting. That's very interesting.
There is a case like that. I remember.
But I'm saying of putting the computer in jail. I think there was a case of a drunk driver who was in an autonomous vehicle, and the police, at this point we have level 3 autonomous. We don't really have level 5, in as far as I know, in too many or any places. And the driver said, "But officer, this is an autonomous car." He goes, great, we'll take you and the car and put you in prison. So it's kind of funny, right? So the short answer is, I don't think that computers have free choice. Now we can start and argue what does free choice mean and all that, and I don't want to get into the controversies, but at the core level, computers do what people tell them. The joke is, when I was in college, we used to program computers and we used to tell computers what to do. Nowadays, whenever you get on the phone with any customer service representative, they're always saying, oh, my computers don't let me do that, or the computer. So it's more like computers are telling people what to do, but behind the scenes, those people that are being told by the computer, that computer was being told by people, what to do. So it's still humans that are programming the computers. I'm sure there are computers programming computers, and you can argue, where the source is. But at the end of the day, I really do think that computers do what they're told. And in that sense, it's a functionality. So in terms of human intelligence, when you add the word human in there, it's really funny in terms of capabilities, thinking how to play chess, how to, beat in this game or that game, or even outperform in driving. It's not enough evidence yet that they're better drivers, but certainly that's the intent with autonomous vehicles, with ChatGPT. They're more creative. They can come up with articles faster, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many different ways where you can say that they outperform humans, but do they have the human trait of free choice? That's I think that's something that's something I don't see it yet. I don't know that they ever will, to tell you the truth.
Will AI algorithm extend or limit our free choice?
That's a very good question. I don't think it has any control on it. It certainly gives us a lot more information. Today, you can go into your computer and do a search on all sorts of, historical pieces of evidence. By the way, one of the other characteristics of being human is history. According to what I've read from Tversky, no animal recognizes its grandchild or grandparent. Now, I don't know how you're going to prove that, but I do find that true just by empirical evidence. I'm no biologist by any means, but there are many animals that recognize their parent or their child, but I don't know of any that recognize their grandchild. And so humans do. They recognize their grandparent, their grandchild, and the reason is we pass on history from generation to generation. I don't know if or how other animals will communicate that history. Certainly animals that communicate, it's been shown with monkeys or whatever, that they don't really have the freedom to go outside of their limited vocabularies. To say very new concepts is very unlikely for many animals, whereas for humans at age 2, a kid will come up and say things that's kind of appropriate, kind of a different context than, using linguistics, commonality words. They come up with a funny thing. So humans, I think, have the ability to choose what to say, to choose when to say it. Humans have the ability to pass down history from one generation to another generation. And I don't really know that computers, have that ability. So I think that's a distinguishing characteristic.
What do you think, let's say, about Turing test? I don't know, 50, almost 80 years from now, 70.
So when I was in college, we talked about the Turing test quite a bit, and almost always it was in the context of can this computer do something where you can't tell the difference whether it was a computer that did it or a human that did it. But it was always in the context of doing something. I give an analogy of a computer is like a very advanced hammer. Your hand can pound a nail, but it's going to hurt, and you might not be as successful. So you can say that the hammer is, better than the human hand in pounding that nail. But with respect to the Turing test, so I think in many cases there are examples where computers, and it depends on the person that you're quote unquote trying to fool, right? They have all these ChatGPT articles, and now they have these recognition detection algorithms that say, was it made by a ChatGPT type algorithm, or was it a human who did it? So you have these Turing tests live with the new advents of ChatGPT. And it also depends on the human. Some humans might see something accomplished, and they don't really care if it was done by a human or if it was done by a machine, and they can't tell the difference. So it's an interesting question. Can computers pass a Turing test? So I think for task-specific, well-defined, functionalities, certainly they can pass the Turing test, but it's also a function of who's viewing it on the other side. But for general purpose, AI, I think it was Moise Navon who wrote in one of his articles that he asked a simple question to ChatGPT when it first came out of, who's the prime minister of the country or whatever. And it didn't give the right answer. Either it didn't understand the question, or it just saw very few keywords and didn't see the context and didn't quite understand. And it came up with the wrong answer. I know I've used one of these ChatGPT interfaces that has audio speech recognition. And so to be smart, I gave it a couple of different languages in one or two sentences, and it couldn't understand. So, not to say that all humans would understand that either. But for the short answer, now that we've gone this far, the short answer is for specific functionalities, absolutely the Turing test, it's already passed it for sure. But for general purpose, I don't think it's there. The other funny thing is, my wife pointed this out. I'm sure everybody knows this, but it's funny to pass it on. All those CAPTCHA, trying to verify that you're a human. The joke is the computer wants to know if I'm a human, right? Do we pass the human test? It's not the human seeing if the computer passed the Turing test. So we're not at the point where the computer wants us to see if we pass the human test. So I'd like to have a machine, go back and say, well, are you a human? And I'd like to create these algorithms that try to figure out, are these, computers, is there a person at the back of this or not? So it's a good question.
Definitely algorithms think in a different way than humans. It's visible when we analyze this AI programs playing Go or chess. It was, let's say, AlphaZero, AlphaGo. So AlphaZero is the chess program, and it played very aggressively. It let the queen go down, but at the end it won. Same with Go.
Wow.
It's about encircling your opponent, and the rules are actually very, very simple. You encircle, because this is, let's say, maybe out of our cultural circle, the game, so we don't know it very well. It's about encircling with your stones the stone of the opponent, and every Go player is taught at the beginning, don't go too far with your line, just like in like military officers are trained. Secure, let's say, your back.
Right. Interesting.
Whereas AlphaGo went very much ahead and didn't care about securing what's in their back, and again won. So it's a kind of different logic. So why I'm mentioning this, it's a kind of, and this is interesting to me how you would refer to that. It's like in the novel Solaris of Stanislav Lem, that we maybe are something very small in comparison to some kind of big nature.
Sure.
The things differently. How would you refer to that?
Yeah, I remember when I was at MIT, there was an epistemology and learning group. Mitch Resnick and Seymour Papert, I think, started it. And may rest in peace. And basically, they had these Lego logo where there was a very simple programming language that kids can program. They would make these little Lego robots or turtles or whatever it was, and they would just maybe move forward, right, left, and stop. I think that's what it was. It had very few instructions. And they were told to program them, and the kids did that, and then they put them in groups together, and then the kids understood that these were made by humans. But when they would see these machines together, they would say, oh, this one's going on its own path, or this one is being anti-social. They would add humanistic personification to the nature of these Lego logos. So I think it's more human nature to try to identify machines with as humans than it is for the machines to, you know, have this inherent nature to want to be identified as anything. You know, the computers don't want any more than a hammer wants. You never say, oh, that hammer really wants to be a nail, you know, like that old song, I'd rather be a hammer than a nail, right? So, or vice versa, right? So you don't have a concept of wanting, of desiring. You just have, you know, it is what it does, you know. Whereas we are who we are how we change ourselves, how we improve ourselves, how we look at ourselves. We have introspection, we have a conscience that no way do machines have.
Do you think that, let's say, AI will help us to understand the universe better, or there are some limits to the to our understanding of the universe?
No, for sure. I mean, again, when I was a student at school, I was taking a Spanish class, and the professor, I think, was a former priest, and there were physicists, mathematicians, engineers, and we were going on an outing one time, and he was discussing how he used to be a priest, and they said to him, "Wow, how come?" And he said, "Well, I was searching for truth." And the physicist who was asking the question says, "That's funny. That's why I'm studying physics, to search the truth." And the mathematician says, "I'm studying math." So this concept of wanting to search for the truth through, you know, our world that we live in, our universe, I think it's fascinating. Computers are definitely an amazing tool to help us, you know, discover and learn more about the truths that are in the universe. And the more we discover, the more we're fascinated. The more we're fascinated, the more we have to realize there's some kind of organization. You know, the analogy they give from sages from nowadays, they say everyone looks at a pack of tissues or a box of tissues, depending upon what country you're from, and it's got some kind of packaging design, right? You have a perforated top, and you have, so you can't say it was randomly created like that. Somebody had a design, and it's got a design, a simple design. And then when you go to something like a radio, it's a little bit more complex, or a cell phone, or a car, or a rocket ship, or so they have these organizational levels in them that you're sure that it was organized, it was created by some kind of creator. The world, too, has a lot of organization in it. A human kidney, for example, no machine can replace that, as we know today, right? I mean, maybe advanced medicines, they're working on it, but, you know, typically there's a lot of trial and error with these kidney machines, etc. So in my mind, there's clearly a creator that's created the universe. And the more evidence we get, whether you want to call it data science or whatever, the more evidence we get about how our universe was created, I think the more it points to the truth that there's a creator. And once we get to the point that there's a creator, then the question is, okay, how does he interact with the world today? Does he still exist? Does he still, you know, and clearly from a faith point of view, you realize he still exists. You know, I've had personal experience in my own life where I've made choices, and pitom, and all of a sudden there's these openings in my life that I just wasn't prepared to see before. So I do think that there's certainly a creator. I certainly feel that the creator is in and active in our very world today, and you know, all powerful. So these are issues of faith. But to get back to your question of, I do think that technology is going to help us to learn more about the universe. Absolutely. It already has. I mean, for sure it has.
Is it like both from, let's say, philosophical and faith point of view, so to say, do you think that we will see, let's say, we are able as a humankind to see all the pictures of the puzzle, so to say? Or are we
all the pictures of the puzzle? We can see a lot of pieces, but to see all of them, I think that's a very difficult, far-fetched to say that we see everything. I do feel that the more we cooperate, the more we work together, the more we understand one another, the more we, you know, give and love one another as individuals and as people, that it opens up a lot of doors. Cooperation is an amazing tool that we were blessed to have. And when we learn to use that, we can learn a lot more from one another. There's that amazing TED talk called the Marshmallow Challenge. The Marshmallow Challenge, if you've never heard of it, it's worthwhile to look at it. It basically gives people to work in groups of 4, and I think they have 15 minutes or so. They have, I don't know how many sticks of raw spaghetti. They have 1 meter of Scotch tape and 1 meter of string and 1 marshmallow. And they have 15 minutes in that group of 4 to build a freestanding tower with the marshmallow on top. And there were 2 amazing points to that. That's very interesting. One point was the groups that tend to try their marshmallow early on tend to succeed better than the goal is to make it as high as possible, not just to make it freestanding, but whoever can make it taller. So those groups that put their marshmallow on, because the marshmallow is relatively heavy compared to the frame and the infrastructure, those that put them on first early on in their design tend to outperform those that wait till the very end and put the marshmallow on only to find out that it's broken. A second piece of thing that was discovered was they did these experiments with all sorts of different types of people. And thankfully, the type of people that did the best are architects. But the second best groups of people are children in, I don't know if they're kindergarten through 3rd or 4th grade, because they work together. They don't judge one another. Sometimes you have this, but with adults much more, they've noticed that you have someone who wants to be the leader. He or she wants to be in charge and do it this way, do that way. And they could be patently wrong instead of listening to the other person's ideas. So one of the concepts in Judaism is when a person has humility, humility doesn't just mean, putting themselves down, but humility just means recognizing that the other person's point of view can be just as valid as your own. So when a person is endowed with humility, then they're much more eager to listen and open to new ideas. So I think that that's very interesting. What you mentioned, that it's very good to work together and to really be open to other people's ideas and to try to really learn from every other person.
It's also a kind of faith-related observation of mine. That there is some ingenuity in the children, that it's incredible, that sometimes they have they make, let's say, much sharper observation than adults. And also I think
Sure.
that the pure joy which is in children stimulates curiosity.
For sure, everything's new, everything's interesting and novel, right? And so it's very nice.
And I think this is, let's say, really something very human, because we
For
are all
sure,
children.
it's personality, it's charm, it's
and something we won't be ever able to recreate artificially.
I agree. I agree on that. You can try to approximate it. You can probably build some sort of machine. A lot of kids like toys or stuffed animals, and nowadays they're robotic and have personalities, and they smile and they ask questions, and so you could try to approximate again some of the functionalities involved with that. But the novelness, the free choice, the empowerment of the child to be able to put A and B together when it's not pre-programmed, so to speak. I mean, again, you can have a controversial discussion of are we pre-programmed or not, and but for the most part, we have a conscience, we have a choice, we have the ability to do that. So.
Yes, and I think, let's say, I don't know if all major religions, I guess so, but let's say at least in Judeo-Christian tradition is that we are created as a picture of God, of the higher power, and there is piece of this power in all of us. So it's quite amazing to realize that, let's say, most high-level physicists are religious people, or maybe it's oversimplification, but I've read some interviews with some high-level physicists, and they said that there are some things that you go down to a point of the Big Bang, and so that cannot be scientifically explained. That or the other way around, science shows that there was something at the beginning which was not material.
Interesting.
And it's, let's say, that's why I was quite so fascinated with what you sent me, the writing, the video of Stephen Wolfram about the concept of R'ulyad, that there is some limit of our cognition also in computer science. That
Sure.
there is a limit, let's say, of finite computation, right?
That's right. There's a big difference between very large and infinite. 0.9999999 for 1,000 spaces is not equal to 1, but 0.9999999 for infinite number of spaces is equal to 1.
Right. That's a very good point.
So you're right. We talk about very large petabytes, terabyte. I don't know what all these different prefixes are, but we have tons and tons and tons of them, right? But it's not infinite. We live in a physical world, and physical by definition means finite. And infinite is a concept we can grasp, we have a handle on, but we don't live in an infinite world. But the concept in Judaism is a person is endowed with a spirit and a physical body. The physical body is limited, and the spirit continues after the physical goes away. So it's very interesting. The spiritual is the part of us that we connect to, that has this concept of infinity associated with it.
There's
Very
a lot of,
amazing.
yeah, this is absolutely amazing. This meeting point of faith-based view and scientific view, or mathematical description of the world, I would say, because this is the language of science.
Sure.
It's often said that artificial intelligence will take our jobs, but my thinking is different. That artificial intelligence will do the work for us instead. More and more work that we're doing will be, let's say, if I can imagine over the next 100 years or so, might be performed by algorithms. In this and robots. From this viewpoint, are we coming, let's say, to the era where people do not need to work, and in, let's say, in which is, let's say, in religious concept, at least in the Judeo-Christian culture, that we are becoming kind of angels?
I think it really boils down to that free choice that I mentioned to you about, that, how we're going to see ourselves. Are we going to see ourselves and use that free choice and use the technology for good and cooperate and collaborate and help those people who need, et cetera, et cetera? And if we do that, then for sure we can have this kind of heaven on earth utopia that you just described. I think that's very possible, and hopefully it's the direction we're going to go there. But if people start to compete and be selfish or greedy and et cetera, then it might be a difficult challenge to get there. But in terms of computers replacing our work, I do think that there's always going to be work for people to do. That work could be anything from learning about our history, learning about so many things that it means to be human, why we were created, what's the purpose of creation, really introspect on our spiritual side. And we can leave the physical part to the machines, as you mentioned. Some of the tasks of agriculture, we have agri-tech, medical tech. We have so many different things that are really out there. And it's really amazing to be in a point in history where you can actually start to think of what it would be like if I had a lot more free time. And what would people do? What do people do when they retire, right? They spend time with the kids, with the grandkids. So family time, family is very important. Interconnecting with those that are special to us, etc. Learning about the world, traveling, very, very, in my mind, these are spiritual things that make a huge impact on people when they go and experience, God's world and the diversity that there is there. So I think it's fascinating. I do hope that the future is like you paint it, like you describe it. Which way it's going to go, I would not know.
Yes, that's true. How about, let's say, a rapid expansion of knowledge in such times?
So it's very interesting. I forgot where I read this, but when the World Wide Web was created, 1991, by 1992, there were more articles published on the web than all of history combined. Or I don't know how they make these calculations, but certainly knowledge is growing very quickly because of the fact that every single person can interact with every other person, whether it's in pairs or groups or I don't know. It's a funny thing. I've thought about this many times in the past, and maybe I'll share it with you. If you have two people, they can each one be by themselves or together, and you can have nobody in the picture, if you will. There's 4 possibilities. When you get to 3 people, it becomes 8 ways to combine them. You have each person by themselves, 3 pairs of people, and all 3 together, and nobody, right? The nobody is always the one case, right? So as you get to 4, it becomes 2 to the 4th, which is 16 combinations if you include the empty set. When you have n people, there's 2 to the nth possible ways that you can have a combination of those people. -1 if you take out the zero, the empty set. But each time you add 1 more person, the number of combinations doubles. So from a person's personal point of view, when he or she comes into this world, there were, let's say, 8 billion people in the world, 2 to the 8 billion combinations. As soon as 1 person comes in, he's just added to that equation the same number that person by himself or herself is equal to all the other combinations without him, right? It's kind of a funny, mind-boggling thing. So we have the ability to affect other people as one individual in the same kind of number of interactions as everybody else to each other without that person. So it gives a lot of, potential power to a person's ability, his purpose, his potential, his, so it's I think that I've always thought about that, and I thought it's very amazing. In fact, there's a teaching in the Ethics of the Father that says a person who saves 1 person, it's as if he saved the whole world. And heaven forbid, if a person destroys a person, it's as if he destroyed a whole world. And I think of it in terms of those interactions, that the whole world minus that 1 person has the same number of interactions as that person has with the rest of the world. So yeah, I think we can influence other people. I think we can interact. I think the knowledge that you've mentioned comes from when people learn more about each other. And absolutely.
This was absolutely amazing discussion, I must say. Edmond, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for hosting me. And it's a big honor, big pleasure.
Edmond Chalom, Ph.D. in computer science and an intellectual, first and foremost, was our guest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to Sherpa Search on Tech. If you have enjoyed the show, please subscribe to our show wherever you listen. Thanks again. The Sherpa Search on Tech podcast is a production of Sherpa Search, an executive search firm specializing in the tech industry, helping hire the right people for expert and managerial positions, and advising how to build and develop long-lasting, high-performing IT teams.
If you would like to learn more, reach out to us at maciej.szczerba@sherpasearch.tech or visit our website sherpasearch.tech. See you next time.